right, good evening. I'm going to call to order the Governance Committee meeting Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Ms. Miller, can we have a roll call, please?
Sean Levy.
Present.
Spencer Anderson.
Present.
And Megan Miller absent.
May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second that. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
All right, I second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And we're at item 2A, referenda planning. So in general, to just kind of paint a picture for where we're at with a lot of the three items that are listed in the agenda, and specifically item 1, in the governance meeting, some of the things that we're trying to do is tee up the different issues that we as a board have to deal with. We got done with our school perception survey around June. Rob reported to us, and some of the follow-up actions is that we need to form a committee. We got various parts moving, but we've not pulled all of that work together. There's some more work that needs to be done if we are going to end up going to referendum, and we have some budget issues that are dictating some actions that we need to take. But also, I think it kind of came to the summary that what we needed to do is make a decision about what projects, how much and how long, and then and continue some more committee work is where we were at. At the time, as we've kind of worked our way through the summer, with Dr. Kieser leaving, Teresa filling in, Mrs. Moratek filling in, and kind of dealing with some of the day-to-day stuff in summer school and trying to wrap up the strategic plan. We've kind of stepped away, but now we're ready to kind of move back up. Just had to, you can only do so many things at once. And we've been very busy. So that's kind of the conversation. So I'll open it up to Spencer and all the other board members that are also present too. Dr. Anderson, you can weigh in a little bit, just kind of providing an overview and just some of the things that you've done already in between. I'll start with Spencer if he has anything.
I don't. But the main thing I would just say is that we want to make sure that the referendum is in line with our strategic plan, and that when we do form that committee, that we have them look at the projects that are recommended that we get done and the things that the community wants us to focus on, like having more of that community central athletic facilities or something like that. So because I know a couple of people were asking about those types of things before. So, I mean, when it goes to a committee, if we have it with or when we bring community members in, we'll probably find out more of those things that the community wants.
All right, so I'll open up to any other board members, anything else, and then I have Dr. Anderson is going to speak to us. Okay, Dr. Anderson.
All right, well, thank you. Since I wasn't aware of the referendum discussions and planning you've had prior to this, I basically just wanted to provide information from my experience in referendum. At this point, I think I've had 6 or 7 referendums. Fortunately, all have passed on the very first time. So some of the things that I've learned about referendums, I thought I'd just pass on as you go through your planning process. One is for you, the earliest you can have a referendum is in April 2024. You do not have the time necessary to have a referendum on the ballot in November. So it means the next time would be April of, like I should have said, 2023. In order to have a referendum, though, in April of 2023, you have to have the final question completed by January 24th of 2023. Now, that may seem like a long ways off, but in reality, that's when the final question, it's the latest date the final question can be approved by the board and still allow you to have the referendum. The draft question should be done at least a month before that, which puts you into December. So if you take a look at now, we are almost in September to December. It gives you several months, but not a great deal of time. I'm not suggesting that you rush a referendum. I don't think that is ever a wise move. But there are some things that I have found to be much more successful. And one is first determining what are your needs. What are your needs facility-wise? And I know that you have hired Bray & Associates to do a facility plan. I actually talked to Bray this afternoon. They said they felt they were about 70% completed. They needed some additional information, so they are contacting me with a date when I can meet with their team to see what additional information they need and how we can get that completed so that we can then report back to the board what Bray & Associates has learned. You need to communicate with the public what your needs are. I know that you have already had one survey from school perceptions from your staff and your community. I reviewed that. There were a couple questions dealt with facilities, but I think just what I'll call teaser questions on how to go beyond this. The biggest one is communicating and determining what your needs are. I believe that if you can determine what your needs are, both as a facility and as for an operational referendum, and then you explain that to the people, you explain it in language that they can understand and relate to, be clearly transparent, reach them in as many forms as possible, that your referendum then has a much greater chance of success. One of the things that's imperative is that you make sure that the staff is behind the referendum. If the staff within your buildings aren't behind the referendum, the chance of passage is almost non-existent, because when community members have when they want to find out whether or not it's truly needed or not, they're not going to go to me, and unfortunately they're not going to go to you. They're going to go to the people within the buildings, and they're going to ask them, do you really need X? If they are supportive, then that will carry a positive message. If they say, if they don't support it, that carries a negative message. So I think your first step, and you talked about a committee, is to start determining what your needs are, and then communicating those needs out. That's just a rough generalization of where I think you need to be.
Okay, thank you. Hearing Dr. Anderson, is there any questions or any discussion that other board members have at this time?
The other thing I will add is that I know that the search for the new superintendent is underway and how that determines, but if for some reason you don't find an acceptable candidate, I've already volunteered to stay throughout the transition process. I would say that if I am the person in that one, what I would ask is to be a spokesperson for the referendum, so that one message, common message, goes out across the board, and board members are more than welcome to attend with me. But if I'm the one giving the message, then I don't have to worry that, if a certain question gets asked, we always give the best answer according to our perspective, but it would mean the same answer would be given out every time, which is, I think, extremely beneficial. And don't take this the wrong way, but since the superintendent gets blamed if it fails, I might as well, be at the forefront so that if it does fail, at least I deserve the ramifications come with it.
That's understood. Yeah. Yeah. One voice helps the message. I think that for me, those points were there. We really just wanted to make sure that because I know there was some work behind the scenes with the administration and Bray, that we kind of just brought those ideas back to the surface, and that board members were informed about what's in front of us, especially as we get ready to roll into this budget that'll be coming, and making sure that we're sequentially putting the steps in order. And so we'll continue to follow after that. So if nobody has anything else, then we'll be ready to move to 2B.
Well, one thing before we move to 2B is that what I will do between now and our next meeting is work with Brain Associates, work with the administrative team, I'm already meeting with staff members to try to bring a list together of what I think are things you may want to consider during a referendum, so that at least you have some idea and some initial points of discussion.
All right, and then we'll continue this and bring this back again on the agenda if we have an update. Okay, 2B, Student Code of Conduct. I put this on as we get ready to start a new school year. Is that, every year brings its own events, different behaviors from young people, and also the learning environments that we're trying to create in our schools. As a board, we have discussed at different times that we do have policies. We do have a student code of conduct, and when those policies are broken and behaviors happen in school that are not don't represent what we feel should happen in a learning environment as we define them by policy, sometimes that does mean that students will come to the board for expulsion hearings, and we have conducted those. One of the issues when we look at a lot of our survey results that we received over the last couple surveys that have gone out, and an issue that we've been addressing is, student behavior and what is the learning environment like in our schools. And so before we get started into the next school year and people are planning to have welcoming learning environments for our students, it's a part of education that sometimes students have to be corrected. But one of the things that we wanted to focus on is between having the policies and at the end, if we need to conduct expulsion hearings, we've done, it's really that middle space between the educators on a daily basis and the building leadership, those that are enforcing those consequences in the relationship with the parents, so that our schools are functioning and the learning environment meets the expectations and standards of our community. So this is just a first mentioning and beginning to understand and have more dialogue about some of those things that are happening before we get into it. And at the end part of our process, as we've gone to expulsion, we have not had our session yet where we talked with the lawyers about what we experienced last year and things that we want to tighten up in our process, as we had taken on the role of holding the hearings ourselves when it came to that point. So I also wanted to, I just wanted to tee that conversation up. I'll start with Board Member Anderson, and then any other board member, if you want, just jump in, and then Dr. Anderson will have an opportunity to speak to us also.
So what exactly, kind of information are you looking for us to give back? Exactly.
Well, not anything per se. I mean, if you look at the different, from our annual board survey, our school perception survey, you kind of saw the data and some of the perceptions where our community feels that student misbehaviors per se may be. You might not have anything, but it's just we're getting ready to start the 22-23 school year, and that we know of, nothing negative has happened yet. But students are in the buildings again. We have athletics, so there's the opportunity for misbehavior and the student code of conduct to have to be applied with sanctions. But I just wanted to get in front of the conversation as Dr. Anderson and our team is getting ready to start the year. I'm sure these are things that they've addressed, and he'll kind of explain some of that to us. But that's kind of the space, just anything that people may think before the year really gets kicked off and we're into situations that may come up. But like I said, that's also a regular part of learning. It's a regular part of school, and each year brings its own things. And like I said, it can be one of the most unpleasurable parts of a school career when you have to correct and make those types of decisions and issue consequences. But also, if you read our policies, we talk about support for those students and proactive systems that we're trying to put in place. So it's just a conversation about those things before we get the school year started.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't have really anything to add to it. I mean, it's just we got to work on that discipline and tighten it up just a little bit, or tighten it up more for making sure that the families know that they have like the kids that are in the classroom aren't getting affected by the misbehaviors, and just making sure everything's pretty just sound. And yeah.
Other board members?
I just have one thing to add. If we could, looking at those numbers from the surveys and the individuals are being affected and they're not their kids, I think we really should try to reach out. If a parent has an issue, give them the proper channels to go through instead of just going directly to the board, and just explaining to them that there's a process to everything. I've seen it a lot where we get a lot of emails and we ask if, have they talked to the teacher? Have they talked to the administrator? They say, no, I haven't. So I think that'd be a really good thing for us to emphasize going into the new school year, just to let them know, like, we want to help, but we really have to follow the process.
Okay. I see. So like, that's one of the things we talked about at our last meeting. We do have a complaint process, and board member Levy, I see your hand. So yeah, those are good points that we want to bring up. Board member Levy.
No, I'm excited to be intentional about the work around the learning environments that we want to create in each of our buildings. Our previous superintendent did identify that there are disparities with respect to race when it comes to discipline. So I'm looking forward to being intentional about eliminating those disparities. I'm excited to see how the restorative justice protocols that have been newly implemented will impact discipline and environment. And then, as you said, meeting with the attorneys and then meeting with the administration to address things that we've identified as a result of hearing expulsion hearings firsthand, and making it a better environment for all of our students.
Okay. Other board members? All right, Dr. Anderson.
Well, in preparation for this meeting, I read the entire Student Code of Conduct. I will tell you that it is a very comprehensive policy that is probably the longest policy on student conduct that I have been acquainted with. But one of the things right at the beginning is that your policy says that you'll review it annually. So one reason I think that's beneficial to have it on for tonight is that you've already said you'll review it annually. This gives you a chance to review it prior to the school year. And you do emphasize at the beginning of your policy, that you want things to be a positive environment for kids. So you're looking at it, this is not as for discipline consequences, but it's what actions do you need to take to minimize or eliminate certain things in the future. Restorative practices are mentioned in your policy. I've had experience with that. I think that though that takes additional time, it does help students reflect on their actions and can be used very effectively to minimize those in the future. One of the things in talking about, you call them administrative hearings. I know the board is selected to listen to its own expulsion hearings. One of the things I would remind you is that when you do that, it means that each of the board members have to be trained in that process. So I know that there are some new board members who have just come on. So I don't know if you've had that training yet, but it would be beneficial. Well, you have to have the training before your first one. Hopefully, we won't have any expulsion hearings, so it wouldn't make a difference. But just in preparation, if those board members who haven't had the training, we would need to schedule that training for you.
I think one of the other things that, when I'm thinking about the policy, like there's just the other, all those that are involved, the classroom teacher and support for our classroom teachers, the students and support for students, the parents, the administrators, the space in between, the attorney for the administrators when they are referring people to expulsion hearing. Like I said, we've had our attorneys that have helped us through in our training. There's also concern for our community. Things happen in the school, or there's a videotape of something, and then it's, you know, you can't beat social media. The speed of social media, things are there, and oftentimes because there's student records or it's a disciplinary situation, in FERPA, you know, not everyone is going to know the disposition of what happened in a situation. And also for our students who have, who receive special education services, and people not understanding manifestation determination, and some behaviors that are manifestations of disabilities, and why did this student get this versus that student getting that, and what's expected. So those are some of the things that, as we kind of, you know, in reviewing the policies, and we'll go more in depth later, but bringing that conversation to our community so they understand what that means, because they're, you know, when you read IEP and it says certain things will happen because that is a part of the student's disability, we don't discipline for that. And that way we can still correct, because, you know, things that shouldn't happen. But oftentimes people say, well, that wouldn't happen if they were in the middle of Walmart, or they're not in the middle of Walmart. They're in a school in the school district of Beloit where we're implementing their IEP, or we're training them and they're learning. So those are those spaces that we don't want people to forget. And I think that we have to continue to educate our community along the way.
And I think it was important, the point that was made is that when you get, as board members, when you get phone calls about, you know, whether it be student discipline or personnel, your best course of action is always to bring them back to the nearest level, whether it be a coach, a teacher, a principal, or myself, to say you need to start there. If at the end of that process you have not received what you think is a satisfactory treatment, then it's appropriate for the board to hear it. But I think what you want is, if you redirect, that gives us an opportunity to deal with it and you know, hopefully come to a positive resolution when it's all over.
Right. And that's one of the things that we explain sometimes to, you know, that people, you know, we are one of seven. We have no power when we're not gathered together in a meeting, but people think there's a mismatch of expectations and what people think the roles are, that, you know, individually one of the seven of us will go change something in a positive outcome that they want. And that's, you know, we, all seven of us, realize that that is not our role. And we have directed things back, and we're trying to be very orderly in our work and purposeful. But like I said, it's just a continue part of that educational process. So if anyone else has anything for 2B, then we'll close on 2B and we'll follow up. C, Board of Education self-evaluation. We are coming up towards, you know, it's August, but October's coming. And that is when we'll complete the second evaluation this year. Board member Winfield and Anderson, having been elected in April, will have the opportunity to complete the survey. We do have past surveys. If you go into like the board docs, you can see the questions and the items. I'm gonna share a little bit here. One of the things that came out of the surveys before, let me see. I had some. I'm looking for a document. I gotta. So there's actually 5 areas in the survey. Relationships is one. That is the area that we took a big leap in terms of board members treating each other civilly. And like I said, we've already explained where we've been as a district and a board. But as we've worked over the last year and a half, 2 years, the other areas are community leadership, to build public support to implement the school board's vision, through public advocacy, through community engagement, share the school board's concerns and actions with the public. There's a policy goal, how the school board sustainably exercises power to serve students through policy. The school board addresses concerns. Accountability, articulate our high academic standards and progress toward reaching them. Through transparency and accountability, open decision-making based on data, open to new ideas, open to constructive criticism. Vision, clear vision with high expectations for quality teaching and learning that supports strong student outcomes through clear and specific goals to move the school district forward. And equity, provision of personalized resources needed for all students to reach common goals through matching supports to student needs. Those are some of the other identified areas in the key work of school boards as it's been defined. We have received that booklet, and this tool is focused on those. So once you'll see in the previous documents that relationships was something that we are equal to or above the state level, but in these other areas, those are still goals that we're trying to reach in terms of our health as a board. I think one of the things that we said before is if the 7 of us do our job, then we're not holding the district back from doing the other things. We're able to amplify and support the work that happens in other places, and not when that work is happening in other places, if we're dysfunctional, stop that good work from moving forward. And so we did engage in this process of the annual review and decided to do it twice, so that as we're going to elections, board members have the opportunity to evaluate their work, and then coming out of elections, that board members are able to serve for a while, understand some of the things, but use that tool as an opportunity to refocus ourselves and make sure that as we're moving forward, that we're engaged in that key work. So I'll start with Board Member Anderson and open to others comments about our self-evaluation as it's coming up, or different things as you have looked at those items or taken it, or the experience and the work we've done since.
Honestly, like the self-evaluation, it's a fantastic tool because we can see how our board is, like the current board is working together. And then as we talked about in previous governance meetings, that then it gives us when we start to do board development, now it gives us something to actually focus that training on, so that we could possibly grow those spots that we're weak in, which is a fantastic thing.
Open to other board members.
I was going to say this one thing. I really appreciate the board members that I was able to be voted on with. Just for me being here and understanding the whole mindset has changed and going forward, and we want to be better in what we do to let the individuals that we're serving do their jobs. I want to just say I appreciate that, because I just being honest, it was some board members that was like really nice, not nice at all to me at one point in time. So it's just safe to say that The board members now, they're really sweet and kind, and you guys rock.
All right. Anybody else?
Well, I think one of the things that I know that you've been doing some training exercises as a board with Drew Howick. I don't know when your next one is planned. If you already have that date scheduled, then I'll put that on my calendar. But if not, and you're looking to have another, I will contact Drew and set up the next meeting. But I do know that in doing research on district that you were meeting with him to, is a board development practice. And I think that was very positive on your point.
Right. We were, that's kind of one of those things that we're not going to get in the month of August, but I will talk with you about following up with September so that we can keep moving things along. I think, Drew, in the spring, we presented at the superintendent conference in Elkhart Lake to share. I represented the district along with Dr. Kieser to share our work with other boards that are using board development. I do think that it is beneficial for us. One of the things that we said is for our community, what we feel is the true nature of our community is that, hey, we're all from Beloit. It's a big enough place, but it's a small enough place that we know each other. As example, board member Anderson's sister and I have worked together. He's graduated 93, I graduated 95, but we feel like in Beloit that we have those ties. And some of the things that did distress us are the way that our citizens, our board members, how people are interacting. And so what we do look forward in our board development time is a time for us to sit down at the table as community members and clear things up, identify the work, and talk about how to work with each other so things are positive. So we will be getting back together with Drew. And also right now, as Board Member Winfield says, that things are positive, we want to keep things positive and make sure that we have tools, even for when we have conflicts, to work our way through so we can still be productive and help the district along in its business. Oh, Board Member Levy, I'm sorry, I did not see your raised hand. I recognize you.
No worries. I'm practicing patience. Just wanted clarification. You mentioned that we all received a booklet. Were you referring to the multi-page report out from the survey, or were you referring to the governance core? And the reason I asked that is there was talk about getting every board member a copy. And I think we read chapter 6 together, even though we never had a chance to discuss it. So I just wanted clarification.
What I was referencing was the last board survey that we completed with those results. I didn't have Mrs. Shope attach the document, but in the last a governance meeting or two ago, the most recent survey is one of the attached documents. So just our last annual board development tool results is what I was speaking to. Or do you mean that key? Do you mean that key work of school boards book?
So the book is called The Governance Core, and I know we can't take action this evening because it's not posted on the agenda, but we were told that all board members would get a copy. And one of the chapters in the book was photocopied and sent out, and we were all supposed to read the chapter and then discuss. That discussion didn't happen, but I think it's still a good idea for us to secure copies of the book for everyone. But of course, we would have to, take action on that or handle that at another time.
Okay, thank you. I don't remember that one, but I forget too, so that could be. All right, anybody else with anything for Board of Education self-evaluation? Okay, well, hearing none, I'm down to future meeting dates, but I'm not in the right screen, so I can't see the future meeting date. All right, one more time, please. That sounds correct. We'll So our next meeting date is September 27th. Yep. Yeah, that's when it is. And now is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right. I second that. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And we are adjourned. Okay. All right. If we have all board members back, I'm going to call to order this August 23rd, 2022 Special Human Resources Committee meeting at 7 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Sean Levy,
Present.
Brian Anderson,
Present.
Greg Schneider,
Present.
Joanne Winfield,
Present.
Amy Levy,
Here?
Spencer Anderson,
Present.
and Megan Miller absent.
Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Schneider and seconded by Board Member Spencer Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Is there approval of the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Board Member A. Levy and seconded by Board Member Spencer Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. On to employment recommendations. 2A, proposal for additional certified occupational therapy assistant. So moved. I think Missy's going to come bring it, speak to it. You're ready, though.
Good evening. The request for an additional certified occupational therapy assistant was presented to committee last week based on caseload sizes. There's a state statute in place. Did you guys want me to share this? I didn't. Would that be helpful? Yeah, you did. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm just going to quick review it. It's caseload size is based on state statute for certified occupational therapists. A maximum of 45 children with one or more occupational therapy assistants. We currently have 5 occupational therapists and only 4 assistants, with caseload numbers varying from 43 to 51. So we are either right below or right above the state statute limit. And so we are requesting an additional assistant for the occupational therapy department. And this is based on increased caseload sizes, increased evaluations of students needing occupational therapy as a related service, and then transfer students coming in with that related service listed in their IEP. So this would be a request for action.
Okay. Any questions? Brian?
So I see that that position was, that person was coming as a special ed teacher. Is that position being backfilled?
The position hasn't been approved yet. The actual FTE for the position has not been approved by the board yet.
Okay.
And I think that what happened last meeting is it came out of the committee, but it didn't hit the
Consent.
It didn't hit the consent agenda, so we were not able to take action on it.
Okay, thank you.
So
I'm
it did
sorry.
it did pass out of committee.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yep, it's okay. Any other board members have questions? Okay.
My
Is there a
hand
motion?
raised, Board President
Oh.
Levy.
Sorry. I can't. Board Member Levy.
Thank you. Even if the position is approved, 4 of our 5 occupational therapists will exceed their caseload maximums. So my question is, have the expected caseloads been approved through the LEA's plan under statute 11577 parentheses 4?
We've been working closely with the DPI consultant for occupational therapy, and there's an asterisk that allows that number to fluctuate a little bit above based on treatment minutes, travel time, and so that's what we take into consideration when we're making the caseload sizes.
No, I looked into it, and it's frequency of duration of occupational therapy specified in the IEP, like you mentioned, travel time, number evaluations, prep time, and student-related activities. But my question is, have those caseloads that exceed the 45 child maximum, even with the occupational assistant, have those been approved through the LEA's plan?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by approved through the LEA's plan.
Okay, so it says that the caseload may vary. In sub 3, the caseload may vary from the specifications under sub 1 or 2, which you've included, if approved in the LEA plan. And that's under statute 115.77 parentheses 4. So we are over our maximums of 45. And it sounds like that's okay as long as it's been approved by DPI through the LEA's plan. So I just want confirmation that we have either received approval or are in the process of seeking that. Because even with the addition, we're going to be over our 45 child caseload maximum.
Right. So thank you for clarifying that. We are working with Carolyn Higbee from DPI, and she's fully aware of our numbers. These numbers were ran in July, and we've consistently been meeting with her since then. So I can certainly have that conversation to get an approval from her.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if you could just update the board once that approval is reached, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Board Member Schneider. Thought you had it. Okay. No. All right. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Schneider and seconded by Board Member Levy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're now at 2B. A motion may be made to convene the Human Resources Committee into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Brian Anderson and seconded by Board Member Spencer Anderson. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Miller, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Sean Levy,
Aye.
Brian Anderson,
Aye.
Greg Schneider,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Juwan Winfield,
Aye.
Spencer Anderson,
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We'll be going into closed session, but we will be returning for open session questions and to bring back actions. All right. Okay, we have reconvened as the Human Resource Committee to public session in order to take any action if necessary on items discussed in closed session. Are there questions for public session on any of the exhibits?
One of the things that I wanted to mention to the board is that the board has the option. We discussed 3 documents, A, A1, and B. A board member can act on each one separately if they wish, or they can act as the 3 as a whole. They just need to make their motion to say that they're making a motion to approve either A, A1, or B, or they could make the motion to say, I make a recommendation to approve A, A1, and B. You can do it in one motion. It's up to you.
Okay. Board Member Levy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to open up. I had a couple questions that were appropriate for open session. I see that the art teacher position at McNeil, there's a tentative start date of some point in October. I'm just wondering, do we have a coverage plan between the start of the school year and when that teacher is ready to step into the classroom in October?
Good evening, Board Member Amy and Board. Yes, as a matter of fact, we are getting back together tomorrow to see where all of the recruitment has placed us and where we need to identify those critical positions that need to have a substitute at the beginning of the school year. And, that meeting's taking place tomorrow afternoon.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My next question is for Exhibit B, so I can hold off if any other board members had questions on Exhibit A.
I don't think there are no questions on Exhibit A.
Okay. Just a question. We have the slate of biliteracy instructional coaches, and we have one Beloit Virtual School coordinator. I'm not certain what the role of Beloit Virtual School coordinator is, or I'm wondering, is that, well, let me just pause there and ask, is that what was meant to be put down? And if yes, what is that role?
Sure, certainly. One moment.
So when we presented our switching of platforms to the Beloit Virtual School to the Wisconsin Virtual School, we did that with our director, Jeff Stenroos, in the spring. Part of that was to bring forward a 0.5 coordinator role, which is, the original expectation, but as part of the WVS plan. So we were very fortunate that when we posted that position, we were able to marry that with a person that works at the high school that does credit recovery, which is also an online piece. So that person is already in the role of a teacher, but with this coordinator position, there's some additional 8 contracted days and then that 5%. And so the way that we calculated that was to do that extra addendum. So that person will be serving to be able to provide credit recovery to our kids, 0.5, and then serve in that Wisconsin Virtual School 0.5 so that we can better service our students that are in our virtual school.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the exhibits? All right. Is there a motion?
I move to approve both Exhibits A and Exhibit B.
All right.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Board Member Schneider and seconded by Board Member Winfield. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. We are in the agenda. All right. So we are now at 3A, our next meeting date. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Whitfield and seconded by Board Member Levy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, have a nice night, everyone.
Yep.
Take care, money, and